Different perspectives, same passion. Welcome to the Coach and the Couch Potato Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 16. 4 months
Big
of the
time.
Coach and the Couch Potato. We'll call it our birthday.
Yeah.
As always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate. Coach Slate, you've been a busy man this weekend. How's the week been?
Yeah, man, it's been a good weekend. We were in dance recital, piano recital. We were locked in on all things for the girls this weekend. So pretty cool. Our dance recital was at the Palace this year. So that was the first time that's happened. Dude, and there was a ton of people. So it was pretty cool. The girls killed it. They did a great job. They got flowers and stuff afterwards.
Aww.
They were eating that stuff up, and then Willa had a piano recital today, and she did a great job. She played London Bridge is Falling Down, and I don't even know the other song, something about the Muffin Man, but it was good, man. It was good, man. It was good. How about you, man? How's your weekend been?
Good. Your kids are out there being more talented than me already. He was good. We ventured to Fort Wayne yesterday.
Heck yeah.
Brought the first little load of stuff home and did some prom shopping and took the kiddo out to lunch, watched him bowl a little bit. So yeah, we are we're 9 days away from him coming home for the summer. So
wow, it's crazy.
Yeah. Year number 1 in the books.
It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Even with, the busyness of the weekend, probably my favorite weekend of the year, if we're being honest, besides maybe opening weekend of March Madness.
Yeah.
We had draft weekend.
Yeah, man.
It's so crazy how they spread it out now. It's almost,
it is.
And you've got multiple channels. I didn't even realize that Nick Saban was doing analysis Thursday
dude,
night.
and he's fantastic, by the way. Phenomenal.
I saw him with McAfee, and I'm like, people don't realize how much of a personality this guy has. It's no wonder people were drawn to him.
Yeah, no, he's great. And, obviously when him and Belichick got on these different, shows for the draft, it's just like, you kind of want to get a notepad out and just take notes on everything that they're saying, because it's just, you get to see a different side of Coach Belichick and Coach Saban. And it's just like, they're so laid back and relaxed. You got Saban pretty much admitting to tampering with
Quinyon Mitchell. Yes.
Mitchell from Toledo. Like, it's just like, but that's one thing I really liked about it too, though. I know he kind of admitted to tampering, but like, he thought this dude was a baller and he wanted him to be at Alabama. And, I think it's pretty cool that the kid was like, you know what, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stick with, the Rockets. And then he becomes a first round pick, man. So that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. That kid's a stud. We'll talk about him a little bit more later.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't the only really, really good pick the Eagles had this weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously the bulk of our listening audience wants to kind of dive into the Buckeyes. So really uneventful draft for the Buckeyes, but when you have that many guys come back, you're not going to have a plethora of draft picks.
Yeah.
I would say I could have seen a situation where, maybe a Josh Proctor got drafted or Xavier Johnson. But I think that might work out better, especially for Johnson. Obviously, the highlighted class is Marv. I think he's in a great situation, honestly. Kyler Murray's not afraid to sling it. And Marv will go get it.
Yeah. And I love the comparisons that they were making with him too. And, there was conversation and shout out to Sean Facione down there with the strength staff at LSU. But, he got into some Twitter debates about who was the best receiver. And then, I love him sticking up for his guy, Malik Neighbors, but, I think Neighbors is a dog. I think he is an absolute stud. Like, I think he's got Tyreek Hill type potential, but there's just something about having that big bodied outside, can go get it at all times. And that's what Marv is. I mean, we all know it. And you look at, the quarterback play between the two, like he had Jaden Daniels, Neighbors did, and no offense to Kyle McCord. I hope he balls out this year for Syracuse, but he was pretty inconsistent. So I thought it was a no-brainer, man. Like, that size, when you're compared to Julio Jones and Larry Fitzgerald, like, come on. Like, and so Marv was, God, it's a really good situation. They're going to spin it with Kyler Murray. It's good to see him teamed up with Paris Johnson again. And so I'm happy for him, man. I think it's going to be a good spot. And gosh, how old are we getting? Marvin Harrison Jr. is in the NFL.
No doubt.
What the heck?
Then Larry Fitzgerald, Larry Fitzgerald is like, half of these kids have probably never even heard of him anymore.
Yeah.
And, it's wild. Rod Rutherford was his QB at Pitt. Watched him play at the Coliseum against the Mayhem. I mean, and I like the Fitzgerald comparison because
me too.
So many people knock on Marvin, say he's not athletic because he's not going to burn you. Sure, he's not. He's not a Tyreek Hill. He's not a Malik Neighbors, but he is a wide receiver. Like he fits it to a T. And shout out Sean. When the night of the Bolitnikoff, he and I, banter. It is banter, and Neighbors had the best quarterback. Yes, not Caleb Williams. Neighbors had the best quarterback in the country.
So good, man. So good.
He's going to be the best quarterback out of this class.
I agree with that.
And we'll talk about Caleb later. Probably obviously most Buckeye fans' favorite pick of the draft. Cade Stover getting reunited with CJ Stroud. And the fact that Cade was the sketch pick. What's up, brother? I mean, that is by far, like, I was sitting at the mall yesterday shopping, and I got the notification. I'm like, wait a minute. Is that the pick Sketch is going to announce? And sure enough that it was. Cade, there were some tight ends that went before him.
Yeah.
That probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But it's all about what a team sees. And Cade, again, he's not flashy. He's not going to be a Brock Bowers type, or even potentially, if he gets healthy and stays right, an Eric All type.
Yeah.
Cade is going to block his butt off for you. He's going to be able to, get you some third downs. He's a chain mover.
Yeah, he is.
And now he's going to a place he's already got a rapport with the quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Cade, I was extremely excited to see him, get back with CJ Stroud. I think although, and they did a special or interview or something with Cade afterwards, and he talked about how, CJ was from Rancho Cucamonga and I'm from Mansfield / Lexington, Ohio, and I'm on a farm, and CJ had his own struggles and with his upbringing. He said, and somehow we ended up at Ohio State together and became brothers, and were captains together. And I honestly think like CJ. I think CJ had something to do with the pick. I don't know. I'm not in the GM's office or anything like that. But, I think Cade is the type of person that you build, championship franchises around. And not saying like he's going to be a perennial all-pro player or Pro Bowl type player, but he's a guy that, could play for 7 to 10 years, be a consistent, face of the franchise for you, type of guy that will be up for the Walter Payton Man Award, like Man of the Year Award. Like he's just the type of guy you want around. And, they kept showing that video of him on the NFL Network, like kneading out the knots on his bull that he had. And it was just like, a just perfect fit that he ended up with the Texans, who's their mascot as a bull. So I thought it was good to see him. I was glad to see him end up with CJ. I think it's going to be a good situation for him. And D'Amico Ryans, man, like, if I'm not rooting for the Browns, I know the team I'm going to be rooting for. Yeah. So I'm excited to see how CJ and how Cade do down there together.
I just figured CJ wanted to start a ranch and he needed, and they actually showed a video of Cade yesterday, and Cade was on the farm.
Yeah.
No watch party, nothing flashy. Yeah. My man was just out there doing work.
Yeah. It's awesome.
And then the last Buckeye drafted, before we get into the one that applies on multiple fronts, Tommy
Yeah.
Eichenberg to the Raiders.
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
Could be.
That's a team that doesn't really have that thumper in the
Mm-mm.
middle. And Tommy's a thumper. He's not going to wow you in coverage.
Yeah.
But in the run, Tommy's pretty good.
He's pretty good. I think his athleticism is pretty underrated as well, because he was so banged up and he played with so many different things. I mean, the dude was out there with like 2 torn ligaments in his elbows and his thumbs. And, he was there. It was a new injury every week. And so hopefully he can stay healthy. But, when he was coming out of Ignatius, like that was one of the things that people loved about him the most was his athleticism and his relentlessness to get after the football from sideline to sideline. To me, he is an Antonio Pierce type of player that is all football all day long. Like he doesn't want to be bothered by anybody. You don't see him smiling much, and he's just going to go play. He's the type of guy that, even if he doesn't crack the starting 11, he's going to be a special teams captain for you within the first 4 years of his career. And that's okay. Those are such valuable pieces to these NFL teams, especially with some of the special teams changes that are happening, the new kickoff that they're going to have in the NFL. You need guys like Tommy. You need more of those type of guys on your roster. So I'm happy. I think it's good. I think it's a good spot for him. At first I was like, man, I don't know how he's going to do in Las Vegas. And then I thought about it like, I don't really think he cares where he goes.
No.
You know what I mean? Like he'll be fine either way. So I was happy to see him picked up. I really thought Steele was going to get picked up too, but we'll talk about him in a little bit. But definitely happy for Tommy, man. He's been one of my favorite Buckeyes to watch. Just will do whatever for the team and for the program. So I'm happy to see him get picked up and get to live out a dream.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think he'll be distracted by the Vegas lights at all.
No.
Wish Liam would have been a Buckeye, but
yeah.
And then probably the pick that made the most people happy, Michael Hall Jr. to the Browns.
Yeah.
We've seen it mocked for 2 months.
Yep.
Fits a need. Streetsboro kid, played in Columbus, gets to come home.
Yeah.
You don't have to thrust them into the starting 11 right away.
Nope.
Which Schwartz likes to rotate, so it's perfect. But you get to that third down where you need to generate pass rush up the middle. Miles is getting double teamed on the outside. You don't want to necessarily blitz JOK up the middle like you used to.
Yeah.
Now you've got a dude that can generate that pressure for you.
Yeah. And shout out to our good buddy who was on here last week, Jake Burns, the best in the business when it comes to covering all things Browns and then really getting into the nitty gritty of how they do things from a GM perspective and a coach perspective as well. And when he talks about Jim Schwartz and when you just watch the type of defenses that Jim Schwartz has had, Mike Hall has the elite traits that Schwartz covets. The only question with Mike Hall was, can he do it consistently? We saw there were multiple games where for 2 or 3 series, he would just dominate. In every tackle, he was in the backfield, making some sort of play, creating some sort of penetration. And so I think for Jim Schwartz, he does such a good job in Cleveland of identifying those elite traits that each individual brings, like a Maurice Hurst last year, like a Shelby Harris, those really unsung guys. He plays to their strengths. Mike Hall's strength is his quickness and to get after the quarterback. And from the interior, as a defensive coordinator, when you run a 4-man front and you've got a 3 technique who can beat their guy one-on-one and go get the quarterback in a pass rush situation, that is such a nightmare because when you have 2 really good edge guys like we have in Za'Darius and Miles, the quarterback has to step up into the pocket. Well, now you're stepping up into another elite pass rusher from the interior. And so I think Mike Hall has an opportunity to be, a Pro Bowl type player consistently year in and year out. And it's just by playing to his strengths. He doesn't need to be an every down run stuffer. He can do that. He can penetrate. But what he does best is what the NFL covets. And so I think, he's got his best football is ahead of him. I really do. He doesn't have to be an every down guy. He can be a rotational guy, like you said. So I was happy to see, as a Browns fan, I was very happy to see him in Cleveland. And so I think he's going to have a pretty good career, and he's got the best defensive coach in NFL helping him out. So it's a good fit for him for sure.
For sure. And you know, that pick would have been very, very interesting if Chris Jenkins was still on the board.
I agree.
But you know, I think you can't go wrong with either one of those guys. I do think Hall gives you more of a pass rush element, where Jenkins is more of a run stopper. Yeah. And as the roster sits right now, we have run stoppers in the middle.
Yeah.
So yeah, only 4 guys drafted. But like I said, you know, you have that many guys come back to school. It's going to happen. You know, we did have 4 guys sign undrafted free agent deals. Josh Proctor to the Jags.
Yep.
Your boy Steele to the Lions.
Yep.
And then out of the 4, the 2 that I think probably have the best chance to make rosters, Xavier Johnson to the Bills, not just because they're a wide receiver needy team, even with drafting Keon Coleman, who that dude's hilarious after listening to his press conference.
I showed my wife that press conference today. She was like, he's talking about shopping at Macy's. I was like, yeah.
I mean, you know, he had to one up Kirk Cousins. He shops at, you know, at Kohl's. So, and then Matt Jones to the Dolphins. That one's really intriguing, because the Dolphins needed a lot of trenches help on both sides of the ball, and I don't feel like they did a great job of addressing it in the draft. And Matt Jones is one of those dudes, can play center, can play guard. You know, he's gives you options. And
yeah, he does.
You know, you never know what Mike McDaniel can come up with. So
you don't. And honestly, I think, you know, the one thing I was thinking about this before we got on here today. You know, there are certain situations where you would almost rather be an undrafted free agent, because, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, who have a 4th through 7th round grade, sometimes they kind of just slip through the cracks. And if you're an undrafted free agent, teams get the bid on you, and then you get to pick where you go. And so you can literally analyze and look at the roster and be like, oh, this team would likely be the best fit for me. This is where I'm going to go. And so there are certain situations where I think being an undrafted free agent is way better than being a 5th or 6th round pick. Obviously, you don't get, you know, the phone call, and you don't get to share that like moment with your family. You know what I mean? But like, you're still getting a call to be a part of an NFL team. So but I totally get it. I mean, I was nowhere near good enough to play in the NFL, but I always had dreams about, like, man, you know, how crazy would it be to be Mr. Irrelevant in the last pick of the draft? You know what I mean? Like, so that's,
Brock
you know,
Purdy.
Yeah, I know. And so that's something that you miss out on. But, you know, being an undrafted free agent does not mean that it's over for you. Ryan Clark just shared something great on Twitter yesterday or today. His letter to the undrafted free agents. And Ryan Clark, for those of you guys don't know, who's the host of the podcast The Pivot, which is a great listen. He covers football on ESPN, but just a phenomenal guy. Played for the Steelers and the Redskins for a while. Went to LSU and was an undrafted free agent. He was a very good player for LSU, but was an undrafted free agent. He went on to play alongside Troy Polamalu and all these great players and Hall of Famers for a 10 or 11-year NFL career. And so, like, he wrote a letter to the undrafted free agents, like, this isn't the end of your story. This is where it could just be beginning. And so, you know, I think some of these guys, like Josh Proctor, I think he could stick onto the roster as a special teamer, no doubt about it. I think he waited until his 6th year to play his best football. And so that let me know, like, he was putting it together, and there's no reason why he can't do that at the next level. And I think Xavier Johnson too. I think Xavier Johnson, he gives me a lot of, and I'm not saying this because we share the same last name, but Xavier Johnson gives me a ton of Matthew Slater vibes from the Patriots. You know what I mean? And I think he could be that type of guy who is a gunner, who is on kickoff return, could provide you depth in the receiver room, could even take carries for you, and he can carve out a productive NFL career for, you know, the Bills or whoever he ends up with. And so being an undrafted free agent doesn't mean that it's over for you. And so these guys have an opportunity to make a roster. They just got to go earn it. I mean, you look at Ronnie Hickman last year at safety from Ohio State, ended up with Cleveland. By the end of the season, he was playing phenomenal football, and he'll be a guy that's going to be a key contributor in the back end for the Browns for the rest of his rookie contract. And so I'm happy for these guys, man. I'm really happy for them. I hope it all works out. You know, the guys, NFL loves drafting Buckeyes, picking up Buckeyes. And so the more you can have, however you get them, you know, kudos to you.
For sure. And then, there were 4 guys who had transferred from the program that also all signed undrafted free agent contracts. Sam Wiggles to the Rams. Yeah. That's interesting because there's a lot of Cooper Kupp in that young man.
Yeah.
So I think he, worst case scenario, may end up as a practice squad guy to start. Dallas Gant to the Vikings. Jalen Gill to the Chargers. That's a name.
Yeah, I just saw that.
And Craig Young to the Colts.
Yeah. Had a lot of high hopes for Jalen Gill.
Yeah, and it just never clicked,
Yeah.
It just and then, real quick before we dive into the Browns and the Bengals, shout out to the University of Findlay.
Yeah.
Mike Jarrell, drafted in the 6th round by the Seahawks, and Mike Rigerman signed by the Ravens as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon for a D2 school to have a guy drafted.
Nope.
But for a D2 that may not carry the resume nationally that Findlay does, to see a guy drafted in an undrafted free agent, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I know that program really, really well.
Yeah.
So give us a little insight to what they're building up there.
Yeah, man. So it's pretty cool being at Findlay High School for the last 3 years. The University of Findlay and their coaching staff has done a great job of really building a rapport with not just Findlay High School, but all the schools within the county. They obviously know they want to keep their guy. They want to keep the best talent at home. And, we've been fortunate to have some high level Division I players, but the majority of our guys and the local schools around are, University of Findlay might be the peak for them, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. University of Findlay is consistently in the playoffs, consistently competing for conference championships. Rob Keys was their head coach up until last year. Rob Keys is now down at Ohio State as a special teams analyst. And so him and Coach Gunner are basically running the special teams right now. So they're killing it. And so the baton at the University of Findlay was passed to Corey Allen. Corey Allen is a great guy, coached his son at the high school. Phenomenal offensive line coach. And University of Findlay knows how lucky they are to have him, because he could have taken some big name jobs in the past, but he stuck it out because he believes in what they're trying to build. And so Mike Jarrell, however you say his last name, he came out in an interview yesterday after he got drafted and said, I want to stick by the people who have stood by me. And that is like the purest definition of Coach Allen. Coach Allen rides for his guys. And so 2 years ago when this guy was at Findlay, he had opportunities to go other places. He had opportunities to jump into the portal and go to MAC schools and go to these other schools, but he decided to stick it out with the guy who stood by him the longest. And look how it worked out for him. He ends up getting drafted in the 6th round, and he has an opportunity to be a really good player. Same thing with the tight end. The Mike Rigerman, got picked up by the Ravens. I mean, I put out a tweet and I put something on Facebook about this too, because having been a head coach, I've had the opportunity to sit down and have conversations with parents and players and what they want to do after they graduate from high school. Oh, coach, I want to go play football. Okay. Well, what are your aspirations? What schools have you contacted, or who can we contact for you? What do we need to do to make sure we're getting your name out there? Well, coach, I only want to go to this school, this school, and this school. Well, those schools that you mentioned are all Division I schools. Okay. All right. Well, if the Division I schools haven't come calling by your junior year, we might need to kind of shift our focus and start looking at some of these smaller schools. And guess what? That is okay. It's so hard to play a college sport. And if you have aspirations to go to the next level, no matter where you are, they are going to find you. These NFL teams will do whatever it takes to win. they are investing so much money into these franchises that they know they have to find anybody who has talent that could play at a high level. So if they got to go to their Urbana University, they're going to go to Urbana. If they got to go to Tiffin, they're going to go to Tiffin. If they got to go to Wittenberg, they're going to go to Wittenberg.
Yep.
If they got to go to Defiance, they're going to go to Defiance. It doesn't matter. They are going to find you. And this is just a testimony to that. And so for all of our parents out there that are listening, to all of us who have aspirations of playing at the next level and then trying to further it beyond that, be great where you are. Take advantage of your opportunities where you are. If you decide to transfer and go somewhere else, hey, as long as you've done it with the right frame of mind, you've done it respectfully, we all support that. But do not believe that if just because you go to a smaller school, you can't make it to the NFL, because you can. I worked at a pro day at Urbana University where we had 3 NFL teams come to freaking Urbana, Ohio, right? Urbana, Ohio. Like, so they will come find you. Okay. So just go be great where you are. And so I love seeing, the guys in Hancock County getting some love, man. So, shout out to Coach Allen running a great program up there.
Yeah, for sure. And and that's why I always think it's really cool that OSU invites some of those type of guys to their pro day normally too. And then you see like the Browns and the Bengals do a local tryout combine type thing.
Absolutely.
Lots
the NFLPA just started doing the historically black, the HBCs, the historically black colleges have their own separate pro day now. The NFL will do whatever it takes to make sure that they are getting every top-notch athlete, the international pathway that they have now. They are going to do whatever. If you look at a lot of the African players, like from the actual, continent of Africa, you see Nigeria we've got a lot of Nigerians in the NFL. We've got 2 of them on our team. Well, the NFL is doing things in Nigeria now. Like the game is going to continue to grow, and the NFL is going to do whatever it takes to find that talent. And so, man, it just shows the power of football. It shows the power of this great sport. And so it's pretty cool to see, man. Pretty cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the local teams go, the Browns, pretty depleted draft picks this year. This is the last year of the Watson trade.
Yeah.
Jury's still out to see if it's worth it or not. But the Michael Hall pick, obviously, great pick. But I think their second pick, so it would have been their 3rd round, absolute steal. Zach Zenner from the team up north, broke his leg in the game this year, but would have easily been a 2nd round pick, I think, if he was healthy.
Oh, I think so too.
The interesting nugget is that it was Michael Hall that got rolled up onto him.
Yeah.
But in that pick, just like we said, the Michael Hall pick would have been interesting had Chris Jenkins been on the board. I think the Zach Zenner pick gets a lot more interesting if the Steelers don't take Roman Wilson right before.
Yeah.
So those 2 guys, I feel like they hit it out of the park there.
Yeah.
And then they took Jamari Thrash, wide receiver from Louisville. Interesting pick. Has some really good traits though.
Yeah, he does.
Really good route runner, deceptively fast. I think he was like 3rd in the ACC in yards last year. And then, the last 3 guys are all guys who, in true Andrew Berry fashion, could potentially make the roster.
Oh, no doubt.
Nathaniel Watson, linebacker from Mississippi State, thumper. I mean, just plays violent, plays physical.
He is.
Miles Harden, a DB from South Dakota, same thing, plays real physical. And with the Greg Newsome situation being up in the air, and worst case scenario, you get to put him on the practice squad and hope nobody steals him.
Yep.
And then Jawan Briggs from Cincy, another D tackle, which is interesting because, with adding Hall, you've got Mo Hurst, you've got Shelby Harris. I think Maurice Hurst is really, really good.
He's got to stay healthy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, a small class, no trades. very un-Andrew Berry-like.
Yeah.
But definitely the kind of class the Browns have never really had the luxury to do before. They've always had
Yeah.
a bunch of needs.
Yeah.
Anything you were surprised they did not address?
I thought they may address receiver a little earlier. I thought they would really look at that in the second or third round, but I totally get, why they didn't. Number one, they just traded for Jerry Judy, you know what I mean? And so they probably believe in what they have in the receiver room, and they were able to add a piece in Jamari Thrash who provides something that we don't necessarily have right now in that receiver room. And so the one thing I really look for when we, and this is something that I think all fans should look for, is when they draft people and we get online in our phones and we go to look them up. Look up what their traits are, what their elite traits are, because whatever those traits are, that's what the Browns are drafting or whatever NFL team is drafting. So like I look at Jawan Briggs. Jawan Briggs from UC, number one, going into this draft, he was one of my favorite defensive tackles to watch. Why? Because he's a massive human being who has so much upper body strength, it's sickening. But the way that Cincinnati used him, they would line him up on the outside as a big, monstrous defensive end, and then they would loop him all the way back around. And it was just like, there were times where I don't know why they're doing that, but then it's just like the defensive coordinator is just having fun with it. And I totally see why they drafted him, because he could plug up the A gap and be elite at that. And so when you get into these later picks, like Miles Harden from San Diego State or South Dakota State, what he's great at is playing in the slot. Well, where do we need help at when it comes to the defensive backfield? In the slot. We don't know, like you said, what we're going to do with Greg Newsome beyond this year. Greg Newsome is not a naturally gifted player when it comes to the slot. He's just still a very good player, and so we put him there. But you look at Cameron Mitchell, who we drafted last year from Northwestern. You look at this guy, these guys are built for the slot. And so, like you said, he's got an opportunity to fit into, our final roster. The Nathaniel Watson pick, the 6th round pick, is probably my favorite pick that we had, just because he's a throwback linebacker. He is purely C gap to C gap. I'm going to find the football. I'm going to tackle you by any means necessary. That is an awesome trait to have in the NFL. You could carve out a 10-year NFL career, especially beside JOK, who's a freak. He's a freak athlete.
Yes.
And the one thing about Nathaniel Watson that everybody across the board, every analyst, every coach, his football IQ is through the roof. That is one thing consensus about him from everybody. What hurt him was he ran a very slow 40. He was not the most athletically gifted guy at the combine, but he's a football player. And like you said with Jamari Thrash, he's a burner. He could play in the slot. He could play outside. He's great after the catch. You can throw him screens. Like, he fits something that we don't have right now. What we thought Elijah Moore might be. Elijah Moore, I don't know yet. I think I got to see more from him on the outside. I don't know if he's a true slot receiver. And so I think the Browns did a really good job of really focusing on the elite traits that these kids have and how we can apply that to what we do. And so I think Zach Zinter was a home run. I just think of one word when I think of offensive line from Michigan, and it's smash. Like, they just want to knock your freaking face off and line up and do it again. And so, like, yeah, I'm going to take an offensive lineman from Michigan. I'll take an offensive lineman from Wisconsin and all these other schools too. But, I think that was a great pick. And then obviously Mike Hall, special. So when it comes to surprises, I thought we might take a receiver earlier, but the guy that I thought we might take was Troy Franklin, but he kept dropping. And so, like, I wonder why. I wonder why that was. And so, oh no, I thought it was a good draft for the Browns. I mean, given what we have, we don't have a ton of picks. So I think they did a good job with what they have.
Yeah, I agree. Whereas the Browns kind of went, slow and steady wins the race. Down 71. The Bengals, obviously we won't go into all the details on the Bengals. But I feel like they went into this draft and they drafted based on potential because they potentially got some studs, but
Yeah.
they also potentially got some busts.
Yeah.
The Amarius Mims pick in the first round, this dude is a monster human being.
Monster.
Like there's we're talking like him and DeJuan Jones could be like the new natural disasters in the WWE. But he hasn't played a lot.
No, he
And
hasn't.
I don't know that that's the type of dude I take when the Bengals have got to protect Joe Burrow. And we've said it since Joe Burrow came into the league. Even the year they took Jamar Chase, they did not address it. And guess what? Joe Burrow got hurt again.
Yeah.
That was the year they took our friend Jackson Carman. Everybody said I hated on the pick just because he didn't get he was just a kid who never lived up to his ranking.
Yeah.
Now they did take Chris Jenkins. I think that's a really, really good pick for them.
Really good pick.
The Jermaine Burton pick has the potential to also be really good.
Yeah, I love that. I think he's a baller. I think he's good, man.
He's explosive as all get out. The one that intrigues me, and it's not just because Cade Stover was still on the board. They took Eric All, played at Michigan, transferred to Iowa. And this kid is potentially a really, really good. He definitely has a higher ceiling than Stover, especially because of his athleticism and the way he catches the ball, but he can't stay healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I think Eric All is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie to you. And when I think of the Bengals, I think he fits that type of tight end that they've had in the past. I'm gonna draw a blank on the guy that they had that just kept getting hurt. Was it Eifert?
Oh yeah, from
Tyler
Notre Dame.
Eifert. Yeah.
Yes.
That guy. I think he's got that type of potential if he can stay healthy, just like Eifert. Eifert could never stay healthy, and so you kind of saw him fall off there a little bit. But when he was healthy, he was pretty good. And so I totally get why they drafted him. Their first pick, the guy's last name was Mims from Georgia.
Yeah.
Like you said, like I was kind of shocked by that. I totally get why they went with him. Totally get it. But I was shocked that they kind of took him that high. But you got to protect your investment. Joe Burrow is top 5-7 quarterback in the NFL. So whatever it takes, we're going to take chances on getting the right guys in front of them to protect. So I didn't think they had a bad draft. The Chris Jenkins pick, I think, is the Bengals always have great D tackles. So it's just like, okay, well, here goes another one, but I'd be lying to you if I said I paid a ton of attention to what they did. I paid more attention to the Steelers just continuing to do Steeler things, and it just makes me so mad that these players just kind of fall in their lap. And then Mike Tomlin, they interview him, he's just sitting there all smiles, like, "Yep, I got my guy." And it's just like, that's what it's like, huh? That's what it's like.
It just be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then looking forward to next year on the Buckeye front. CBS has a very, 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 very early mock draft out.
Yeah.
7 Buckeyes in the first round.
Yeah.
No Travion.
Nope.
But Quinshawn.
Yeah.
But this mock was done while he was still at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
So and it's going to change. I mean, they had Shador and Travis 1 and 2. I don't know that Shador is going to make it through the whole season with their offensive line the way it's shaping up out there.
Yeah.
Coach Prime got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You can't have him running for his life. And the other thing I think will be interesting to monitor, almost like a Jaden Daniels situation this year. Jaden Daniels was going to be like a 3rd or 4th round guy.
Yeah.
Goes to LSU, follows the Joe Burrow trajectory. Will Howard.
Yeah.
Has the chance to earn himself a whole lot of money.
He does.
If you just come out, show a hair of arm strength, don't turn the ball over. I'm not saying the guy's going to win a Heisman or anything like that.
No.
But I think one of the big takeaways from this draft, I think NFL teams are petrified of next year's quarterback class. As evidenced by the fact we saw 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12.
Mind blowing.
And of those 6, I'm going to say I don't know that 3 of them should have been.
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway from the entire draft, not Buckeyes or Browns related, WTF, what the Falcons? You go sign our guy. We talked about him. His agent should just teach classes on how to be an agent. You sign Kirk Cousins, 4 years, 180.
Yeah.
And then you take Michael Penix with the 8th pick. Now, all the scuttlebutt all week was Penix is going to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
Somebody's either trading up for him. Nobody said Atlanta was going to take him.
No. That was the last team I thought was going to take him.
This is a team that's got 16 sacks last year. Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, Trey Hendrickson all had more than that their entire team.
Yeah.
And at that point when they took him, and actually for 9 more picks after that, there wasn't a defensive player taken.
No.
So the quarterback run was insane.
Was insane.
Caleb was a given at 1, and the Bears did more for Caleb Williams in 45 minutes than they did for Justin Fields in 4 years.
Yeah, that was pretty frustrating. It's pretty frustrating as a Buckeye fan to see.
I hate it, but everything happens for a reason. Pains me to say it, he's probably in a great situation now.
Yep.
Getting Oduzne at 9 because of the quarterback run, insane. So the 6 quarterbacks, you had Caleb at 1, Jaden Daniels 2, Drake May 3, Penix at 8, JJ McCarthy at 10, and Bo Nix at 12.
Yeah.
Nix was mocked to the Broncos a lot, but late, 22nd, 23rd. But I get it, because if you don't take him there, Vegas is taking him at 13.
Absolutely.
I think I got asked to rank the quarterbacks yesterday. How I think they're going to do.
All right.
Jaden Daniels is going to be the best quarterback.
Yeah.
Out of this class. I don't think it's even close. I think he has absolute dog in him. And I think just as far as situation, I think JJ McCarthy has a chance to really succeed.
Oh, no doubt about it.
You are walking into an artillery room of weapons. And JJ's not going to turn the ball over. That he's just not. He may not beat you chucking the ball deep. And then it gets interesting because I really, really like Penix, but he's in a terrible situation. So I feel like Penix, Bo Nix, and Drake May are all kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
I feel like first-round quarterbacks have about a 50% hit rate. And I don't know what we're going to get out of those 3. And then that leaves us to Caleb. And Caleb Williams is not for everybody. I mean,
he's not.
Is he talented? Sure. Do I think he has the off-the-field traits and the non-physical traits to be elite in the NFL? I don't. I question his mental toughness. You're still a team who their O-line is going to be suspect.
Yep.
It's a franchise who's going to build a brand new stadium in Chicago and not put a roof on it. So that tells you a whole lot there. And then obviously the joke with that is they think so highly of Caleb, they were the first team to draft a punter. But it'll be interesting to see. I know you like Caleb a lot.
Yeah.
So, with the quarterback run, how do you see it playing out for those guys?
Man, like you said, it's so great right there. Caleb Williams isn't for everybody. I am not the biggest fan of the fingernail painting with the, F whoever they are playing. Like, you want to paint your nails, fine, but at least have some respect with it. Don't go out there and do those things. Like that type of stuff, like I'm not the biggest fan of. But we've been talking about elite traits this whole episode. This dude, I mean, flick of the wrist, and he is like, it is when he's on, it is so much fun to watch. Like when he was at Oklahoma, whenever he turned on, like it was must see TV for me. Like I think teams are really looking for that Patrick Mahomes type, can go out and make every throw and do it with a little flash, and then he could do all the unscripted things. And so if that's what you're looking for, that's what they got. He can make plays off schedule, and I think he is fantastic at doing that. And he's going to have to if their offensive line doesn't improve. And so if I had to rank, who I think is going to have the most success out of this group, I'm going to be honest, man. I love Jane Daniels, and he's probably the most polished and ready quarterback in my opinion. But dude, I think JJ, I just think he's in such a good situation. I think he's in such a good place with a really good coach, a fantastic fan base that is going to rally behind him. He's in a dome, you know what I mean? Like he's got a lot of these positive things working for him. And I think JJ, because he was at Michigan, they didn't really get to, spin it the way that he may have wanted to. And he wasn't asked to do a lot. But I think JJ McCarthy's I think he's got really good franchise quarterback potential. And so I think he's in a great situation. I feel bad for Penix. Penix might have been like my most favorite over the last 5 years. Like just watching him play, you just never know. And then you turn to him, he's freestyle rapping on the sideline. Like, you just root for that kid. But he's in a terrible situation. And I'm not knocking anybody. I'm not an NFL GM. I'm not an NFL coach. But I just am so shocked that they took him in that spot. And so, like, if I had to, like, rank the quarterbacks, like, I would unfortunately, like, have to put him at the bottom when it comes to that run of quarterbacks. But I think, JJ will be up at the top for me with Daniels. I think Caleb, it just depends. When you have those type of quarterbacks, it could go either way. He could be Jameis Winston and do some fantastic things, but then he also will throw 30 interceptions. You know what I mean? And so with those type of guys, even though I'm a big fan of them, those are the type of guys like you have to live with some of their mistakes. And so I think they are doing things now to set him up? Absolutely. Pisses me off a little bit because I wish they would have done that for Fields. But and with Drake May and Bo Nix, like, I like Bo Nix. I respect him as a college player. I never watched enough to know if he's a true franchise quarterback. And some of the comparisons that they were making for Drake May, like some Josh Allen comparisons, like, okay, like I guess I just need to see more. But the other guys I watched a lot. So I would probably go with JJ and Jane Daniels as the top two guys that I think are going to find a lot of success for sure.
For sure. Probably the most intriguing quarterback pick outside of the top six for me, Jordan Travis to the Jets.
Yeah, love that dude.
That has the potential to be sneaky. I mean, you're not going to have Ron for however long. I'd venture to guess you're going to have Rodgers for like 2, maybe 3 years, depending on health. They got weapons. They got a lot of weapons. So that intrigued me.
Yeah.
Another thing that really intrigued me, Ladd McConkey to the Chargers. We talked a little bit, in the past how high I am on Ladd McConkey.
Oh, yeah.
You lose Keenan Allen and you go get Justin Herbert, a new Keenan Allen, a great route runner.
Yeah.
Probably the best route runner in the draft. Not going to wow you with the freaky athleticism of a Neighbors or even like a Keon Coleman. But he's a security blanket.
Yeah.
And Justin Herbert now has, they got a guy from TCU, Quentin Johnson.
Yeah.
So you've got your big-bodied red zone guy.
Yeah.
You've got McConkey. Coach Harbaugh is not going to come out and kill you in 5 wide or anything most of the time. So that one really intrigued me. As a Browns fan, I hate the Roman Wilson to the Steelers pick.
Me too.
They needed a receiver and they went and got a dog.
Yep.
I mean, this guy is good. Player wise, what were some of your favorite or head scratching moves of the draft that you followed?
Well, I was really hoping Ladd McConkey would fall to 54 because I do think the Browns were looking for that type of receiver. And I think, one of the Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network said he was a faster Cooper Kupp. And I think him and Jamari Thrash have a lot of the same traits. Not saying that, Thrash is on his level by any means, but I'm just saying like they are good at the same things. And so I totally see why the Browns drafted Thrash in the 5th round. But I was really hoping Ladd would drop to us, but I think he's going to be a very good NFL player for sure. And then, the one guy that I was really shocked that he fell a little bit was I'm gonna butcher his last name, but the defensive end from UCLA, Latu.
Yes.
He's special, and he was by far the best pass rusher in the NFL draft. And so I think, and I don't like saying he's got TJ Watt ability, but he's got the build, he's got the toughness, whatever's going on with his neck, him being able to play through that. And I think that's part of the reason why he fell. But that was a guy that I'm really rooting for. So I hope he finds a ton of success where he lands. But the biggest thing that I'm going to take away from this draft is that those and the top tier NFL programs or franchises showed why they are the top tier franchises. And you're going to hear me say it a bunch, but the Steelers have a type of guy and they go get that type of guy every single year. And it frustrates me. The Chiefs have a type of guy and they go get that type of guy every single year. And so I will always be enamored by those teams because they continue to show why they will always be one of the most storied franchises in NFL history. Have the Steelers won a Super Bowl in a while? No, they haven't. But they made it to the playoffs last year with a team that shouldn't have gone to the playoffs with terrible quarterback play. And so, the one thing as a diehard Browns fan is that I see Andrew Berry has a type and he goes and he gets it. And so as a Browns fan, I implore people to understand what he is trying to turn our franchise into. And we may get upset because we don't see the big time names and all the time, but look at the traits. And so that's the biggest thing that I always take away. That's my favorite part of the draft is those 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. What are the top tier teams drafting? What are they drafting? Because I guarantee you're going to turn on the TV and one of those 6th or 7th round picks for the Steelers or for the Chiefs or for any other top tier NFL franchise is going to be a player. It's just the way it works every single year. So that's what I take away from the NFL draft almost every single year.
It's a given, and just a quick hitter, Buffalo, what are you doing? Letting the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy. I
have no idea.
The two teams to me, you've gushed over the Steelers draft and rightfully so. The two teams for me that just killed it, the Eagles. Howie Roseman came to play this weekend.
Yeah. Again, they've got a type and they go get it.
You arguably got 2 of the 3 top corners on the board.
Yeah.
Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. has the potential to, and that was a cool moment.
That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool.
And then, it's funny because you have a new regime with this other team, the Commanders.
Yeah, they did a great job.
I mean, they got Mike Sarin still. I mean, that guy, he's good.
He's pretty good.
They added a lot of talent in the trenches. Those were the two teams that really jumped out to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you hit on it. It's why the teams that are historically good are who they are.
Yep.
So it'll be cool to follow, like the Commanders, especially with that whole regime change, because under Daniel Snyder as the owner, that was always the knock: is their drafts were terrible. Like I hated it when Dwayne Haskins got drafted by them,
Me
and I
too.
hated it when Chase Young got drafted by them.
Me too.
So yeah, draft time come and gone. Still quiet for the most part on the Buckeyes front in the portal. We got a couple more days. Really weird to say the least, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot to dive into there. We're in the middle of NBA playoffs. MLB's firing up. Guardians took one against Atlanta. Should have had another one today. But the cool thing is this gives us a chance to dive into stuff like the draft.
Yeah.
And at some point this summer, we're gonna revisit the draft. We've got a special guest lined up when we can make schedules work to kind of do some cross discussion. It's no secret, as you can see behind me, memorabilia is a part of my life. And the draft does crazy things for the memorabilia and trading card world. So we got a guest lined up for that. And then, so we decided to get a little creative with Mount Rushmore today.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do anything negative. We don't like to be negative. The easy one a lot of people address is draft busts. And, you can talk about Tony Mandarich and Johnny Manziel and, whatever. But that's not us. Yeah. So with the NBA playoffs starting, and we may have an episode this summer where we dive into the Michael and LeBron debate, just for fun, because I think we're both very similar minded about it. Because honestly, for me, it's a Michael, LeBron, Kobe debate. I think you can argue for all three. So to have some fun, and I'm by no means a sneakerhead anymore. You get to my age, I'm old. You got to have comfortable shoes.
Yeah.
But we decided to do your 4 favorite styles of Air Jordans. Nothing fancy, just literally something low key and fun.
Yeah.
For me, it's mostly old school / the common popular choices. I chose the 3s. They're kind of the classic. And then we went on a run, essentially. The 9s will always be my favorite. They were the first pair I owned.
All right.
And then you have to have the 11s on a Jordan list.
You have to.
And then I chose the 12s over the 13s. It was close, but that is where I am at.
All right. So we are very similar minded. I am not a sneakerhead. Like, just give me a pair of Vans and I'm pretty happy. But I was a fan of these 4 Jordan sneakers because they're the only 4 that I've ever owned in my entire life. And when our kids come in with these shoes, like, it takes me back to when BP and I were younger. Brett Payne had every Jordan imaginable.
And so did Jackson, who Jackson's now a listener. So happy belated birthday, Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson, happy birthday, man. But yeah, so for me, the first one on the list would be the 3s. Why do I like the 3s? Everybody thinks like, oh, they're like you said, they're classic, but I just feel like they fit a wider foot much better.
Yep.
And so, like, as somebody who has a wide foot, I was a big fan of those. Okay, so the 3s, that was the first pair of Jordans I ever owned. My brother was a big Jordan fan, so I would really get his hand-me-downs when it came to the Jordans. Obviously, the 4s, like you said, just super classic. When the kids come into school with the 3s and the 4s, like, they, for whatever reason, feel like they need to come to my classroom and, like, show me, or like they start walking funny because they don't want to crease them. And it's always the 3s or the 4s. It's one of those two every single time. Can't crease them, so I got to walk funny. So the 3s and the 4s will always be up there for me. The 12s, You know, you seeing them making a comeback now in the golf world, the Jordan 12. BP actually bought a pair of Jordan 12s, the gray ones that were too big or too small for him. And he didn't want to take them back. So he gave them to me, and it was like a dream come true. And I never forget, I was wearing them around the house, and my brother was like, where the heck did you get those? I was like, don't worry about it. You know, and next thing I know, 2 weeks later, my brother's got him on his feet and I never saw him again. So that's just the way that works. So the 12s, but my favorite ones, the 11s, like those, if there was one pair of Jordans that I told my family, like, we need to make sure that I have a pair of these, it was the 11s. They were my favorite ones by far. But there is a new Jordan that is a cross between the Travis Scott shoe and the Jordan 1 low. And those might end up being, if we did this a year from now, those might be my favorite ones of all. Like, they might be number one, because I'm 37, I'll be 38 this year. They just fit where I'm at in my life right now. You know, they're a little flashy. Like, if somebody saw me with them on, they'd be like, oh, okay, I see you. But they're not like, okay, like, you're too old to wear those Jordans. You know what I mean? So they fit right there in that pocket for me. So that would definitely be my list of Jordans. Yeah. I feel pretty good about that. I feel pretty good about those four plus the Travis Scott. So I feel good about those.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that your brother is a sneakerhead.
Yeah.
You know, the Slater brothers are some of the most dapper individuals that you will ever meet. You know, I don't know Coach's brother real well. I've met him a few times, but yes, the Slater boys are put together.
That is my guy. He is an avid listener. So he built a home gym, and he's got this TV in his garage. And every time he works out, it's one of our episodes, he says. And so he'll text me and he gives me like updates. He was like, man, why did you say this? Or why did you do that? Or why didn't you bring up this person? Like, he was giving me like a rundown of our draft episode. Like, I can't believe you guys didn't draft Beanie Wells. I can't believe you didn't do this. Like, and so my brother, man, that was actually going to be my shout out today. So my brother is freaking, he's my best friend. He's my idol. He's on the team that beat Mass in Washington. And so, like, will always be in my brother's corner when it comes to everything in life. So he's killing it, man. So yeah, he's a big time fan. I would argue he's our number one fan. I would argue
that is
that
awesome.
He's number
I
one.
love it. I also took a lot of crap all week because Beanie didn't get picked.
Yeah.
And you know, for me, I defended it as I had Eddie, I had my bruiser.
Yeah.
I needed a little bit of lightning to go with my thunder, and that's why I went with Michael Wiley.
Yeah.
You know, that episode was a blast.
It was great, man.
The feedback we've gotten from it, you know, I think a lot of people really enjoyed it. You know, so we were able to, you know, super fortunate to have Jake join us for that.
Yeah.
You know, and Coach already gave his shout out for the week to his brother. You know, thanks for the support. You know, it's awesome that we're 4 months into this thing, and you know,
yeah,
I feel like starting it not in prime football season may have been the best thing we did because it's allowed us to really get our feet underneath us. And you know, we get messages all week, you know, hey, why didn't you talk about this? Just like you said, or hey, throw me a bone here. Speaking of throwing a bone, I'm gonna throw this out here real quick because I did not take a shot at Miami last week. So I slipped there. How many guys did Miami have drafted in the first and second round? Zero. Now they did just get a big portal addition yesterday.
Yeah.
Martinez, the running back from Oregon State.
Yeah, pretty good.
I thought he was going to Michigan State. I really did.
Yeah.
Interesting though, because you know we've talked about Benedict Alford and his affinity for South Florida running backs that later spurned the Buckeyes to go to Miami. You know, maybe everything works out for a reason, and maybe those guys aren't what we thought they were, or you know, who knows? It's Miami. They're going to do Miami things, and they're, you know, in front of their 2,500 fans that show up every week, and go from there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this week develops. Last week of the portal. See what we can dive into next week based on the happenings. Should be pretty quiet on the recruiting front still for another couple weeks with the dead period. There's some things happening. Big visit this past weekend.
Yeah.
Real big visit.
Yeah.
And my man loves hamburgers. So
yeah.
Pour in more, I got you.
Yeah.
I'll grill for you anytime, and I'll give you the best burger you've ever had.
Did you see that clip of Justin Hill, the edge from Winton Woods? How great was that? The best part about it was after he put that kid on his butt, he helped him up. Like that was okay. I want this guy. I want this guy at Ohio State.
Cool. So real quick hitter. The Buckeyes have always struggled in Cincinnati, especially with trenches guys. Seems like that's changing. There's a little bit of change there. So that'll be cool to follow. Was he the one that announced the commitment date today too?
I know he just dropped his top 4.
Somebody announced the commitment date, and I think it might have been him. So that'll be cool to follow. Trey McNutt balled out at 7-on-7 this weekend.
Tavian St. Clair balled out.
Oh yeah.
We got a whole episode on that kid, man. He's
a class act.
Yeah.
Drove through New Haven, Indiana yesterday.
Okay.
Did not see Mylan Graham out running routes.
Can't wait till he gets on campus though.
Dude, that kid is gonna be good. So yeah, as always, shoot us some feedback, give us some questions, anything. And yes, BP, we mentioned the Guardians earlier, so we covered that.
We did. And BP, I'm gonna say it again. LeBron is the GOAT. I don't know. I know they're down 3-1. I don't know what else LeBron can do to show that he is the greatest player of all time. The dude is 50 years old and he's still being asked to be the best player on his team. Like, I just don't understand. Like, oh my gosh, AD finally showed up and the rest of the team showed up yesterday and they actually won. So it's great.
You got Hachimura dropping 0 points the other night. When we do the Jordan LeBron episode, that might be the BP guest week. We might have to get BP on for that because that could get heated. But yeah, with that said, I've got nothing else. I think we're good to roll. We will see you guys next week.
See ya.